This is Lesson 8.5's homework worksheet. So number one, we're going to go ahead and just use our product property here. Coefficients, multiply like normal. So it's 6, multiplying your similar bases, exponent of 1, exponent of 3. When you multiply, you're going to add your exponents, so b to the 4th. Number 2, coefficient is 1 times 4 is 4. Some people want to move this to the bottom right now. I would go ahead and combine. So we have similar bases. And so we're just adding our exponents. Negative 1 plus 4 is 3. If you had moved it to the bottom, you'd have 4x's on top, 1 on the bottom. 1 would cancel, leaving you 3. So another way to think about it. Number 3, multiply your coefficients. 6. Go ahead and multiply your similar bases, which means adding your exponents. Negative 1 and negative 1 is negative 2. Now, we're not going to leave a negative exponent, and so this whole thing has to go to the bottom. So picture this over 1, because any whole number where we don't see a fraction is over 1. So this is going down to the bottom. So my final answer, 6, still up top. X squared on the bottom becomes positive by moving it down. Number 4, multiplying across, that's 9. Add 2 and negative 2, that's 0. So if you wanted to write end of the 0, you could, but that simplifies to 1. And 1 times 9 just leaves you 9. You don't have to show that middle step there. Okay, number 5, we have 1 divided by 2. There's a 1 here. That's not going to change anything, so we're going to keep that 2 at the bottom. We have 3 m's on top, 4 m's on the bottom. So 2 different ways to think about it. We can cancel these 3 with 3 of these. Since we have more on the bottom, this leftover one from the 4, since only 3 can cancel, it's going to be left on the bottom. The way to visualize that is to write them out, which you don't have to do. 4 on the bottom, 3 on the top. So if you canceled them one at a time, where are you left over with some m's? On the bottom with 1. So it's got to stay there. The top is completely canceled out, but we do need something to placehold up here. So the 1 needs to fall in that spot. And so it's 1 over 2m. Number 6, the 2's will cancel. This is m to the first. So 4 m's will cancel 1 m down here, and that leaves you 3 up top. So you can put it over 1 if you want to, or just leave it like that. Number 7, the 4's cancel. Now you have v squared, which is v times v to the third on the bottom. So when you cancel these out, these 2 v's will cancel 2 of the v's on the bottom, which means there's still 1 left over, and it's on the bottom. Nothing on top at this point, and so you put a 1 there. Now, going back to a different strategy, and we can look at it up here, we can look at it here, same thing. If you're somebody who likes to use the quotient rule where you subtract, since we have division of similar bases, you subtract. 2 minus 3 is going to be negative 1. So my answer is going to be v to the negative 1, and we always put it up top when we're using the quotient rule. So it's just v to the negative 1, which we would need to fix. It's technically over 1. You bring it to the bottom. Now you have nothing left up top, but you have a positive v to the first on the bottom, placeholder of 1 up here, which is what we've got here. Same idea here. If you had done 3 minus 4, you're going to get negative 1. And so when I write that out, the 2 I know stays in the bottom. If I use the quotient rule, I put my answer, no matter what it is, positive or negative, up top. So I would have m to the negative 1, which then needs to get moved down to the bottom, which would give us this. So if you're using the quotient rule, just make sure that you put your answer, positive or negative, on the top. If you're just canceling, just make sure you leave them on the bottom or leave them on the top, depending on where you started with more. All right, number 8 now. When we get to ones that have negatives all over the place, it's probably helpful to move them. That's what I like to do. But if you wanted to use the quotient rule here, you could. Because these are similar bases, I would subtract. So it's negative 1 minus negative 2, which goes plus plus. Negative 1 plus 2 is just 1. So my final answer is just going to be x to the first power, which is just x. Okay, if this gets confusing for you, this strategy may work better. Since it's negative, I want to make it positive, so I'm going to put this one down to the bottom. It becomes x to the positive first. I'm going to take this one, since it's negative, and move it up to the top. It becomes x to the second. And now everything's positive. It's nice and easy. I have 2 up top. I have 1 on the bottom. So this 1 cancels one of these. If you got to write it out, write it out. So 1 cancels, leaving you 1 on top, which also gets you to your final answer. So we talked about on the 8.4 worksheet, find a strategy that works for you and stick with it. All right, number 9, multiple things being multiplied here. So there's a coefficient here of 1, and then the 4, and then the 3. So total, that's going to give me 12. We can combine all of this together. It's all being multiplied. So I have x to the third, x to the negative fourth, and x to the first. So if I was adding all of those, that's 3 plus negative 4 plus 1. So 3 plus negative 4 is negative 1, plus 1 is 0. So I'm going to have x to the 0, which I don't need. I can just get rid of because it's just 1. And over here I have y to the third, y to the negative third. So those two right there is going to make 0. So those basically cancel each other out. And then I have y to the negative second left over. Since it's to the negative second, I do need to move it. So imagine this over 1. Y to the negative second needs to come to the bottom to become positive. So I still have 12 on top. Y to the second on the bottom. The 1 is the coefficient. We don't need it. You leave it just like this. Number 10, coefficients multiply. It's 2. X doesn't have anything else to combine with. That negative 4 is only on the y. This would have to be in parentheses if that negative 4 was going to go to the x and the y. So the x has an exponent of 1. So it's just going to stay right there. And with my y's, negative 4 and a 1, I'd be adding those. So that's y to the negative third. So just the y with the negative exponent needs to go down to the bottom. Imagine this over 1. And so it's 2x over, becomes positive on the bottom, so it's y to the third. Number 11, now we have parentheses, and so everything inside the parentheses will receive the exponent. So it's going to be 4 to the negative third, and power to a power you multiply. So this is y to the negative ninth. Now since both of these are negative, they both need to go to the bottom, meaning nothing's left up top, so we need a placeholder of 1. On the bottom, we're going to have 4 to the third, and we're going to have y to the ninth. They've become positive. And if I do have a whole number raised to an exponent, I'm going to go ahead and expand it. So 4 to the third is 64. 4 times 4 times 4. So final answer here, I'm going to expand this out to 64. And then this is y to the ninth. If you try and expand it with the negative exponent, you're going to get some weird decimals most of the time. I'll show you what I mean. So let's say you try to do 4 raised to the negative third. You get this nasty decimal. Please don't give this decimal to me in the answer. It's not useful to me. I need 1 over 64. Now they're equivalent. This is not an incorrect form of this. It's just not the form that we want for a nice simplified answer. Because if I go ahead and take this fraction, 1 over 64, and do the division, you'll see it's equivalent. It is the same thing. These numbers are the same decimal version, but I don't want this long decimal. I want it as a fraction 1 over 64. So don't plug in a negative exponent. Move it, make it positive, and then once it's positive, go ahead and expand the positive exponent down there. Also, if you don't have a graphing calculator, you can get a lot of these functions on a calculator on your phone. Whether it's an iPhone or a Galaxy or whatever, if you find your calculator function and just flip it sideways, you'll get your scientific. Okay, and you'll have a bunch of other functions here. For this one specifically, we're looking at x to the y as raising an exponent here. Let's see if I can do it. So let's say I wanted 4 raised to the third. There you go. 64. So I put the 4 in first. I hit the x raised to the y. Put that in. But remember, let's say you were stuck and you only had a basic calculator. We need to understand that 4 to the third is just 4 times 4 times 4. Okay, and I'm going to get 64 that way. Okay. Okay, number 12. Everything needs to get the 2. There's 3 different things in here that have to get it, the 2, the u, and the v. So 2 raised to the second is 4. This is u to the first. Power to a power you multiply, so that is u to the second. And when I multiply with v, I'm going to get v to the negative 8. That needs to be fixed, so imagine this over 1. V to the negative 8 has to go to the bottom to become positive, so my final answer is 4 u to the second over v to the 8th. (13) Quotients here with negatives. So a couple different strategies. You could do the subtraction if you want, or you can move the negative and then combine. So we'll talk about both. So first of all, we've got the y over the 4, y to the 4th over y to the 4th. So those are going to cancel out. So we're just dealing with the x. So let me rewrite it over here. X to the 4th over x to the negative 2. You could use your quotient rule. 4 minus negative 2 goes plus plus. It's to the 6th. It always goes up top. So answer is x to the 6th. One way to do it. Other way is to just get rid of the negative. So we're going to bring this to the top. It becomes x to the positive 2. And now I'm multiplying these together, and I'll get x to the 6th when I add them. Okay, 2 different ways to do it. 14, 3 over 3 cancels. How do I want to deal with these now? So subtraction would be 3 minus negative 2. Goes plus plus. That's 5. So I have m to the 5th. Negative 1 minus negative 4 goes plus plus. That's 3. And so it is n to the 3rd. So quotient rule, if you can handle your negatives and write everything out, I think it's nice and easy. But the other strategy, let's take a look at that. If we're just dealing with the m's first, take this negative 2, bring it up top and make it positive 2. Now you can combine it with what's already up there. 3 and 2 make our 5. Now over here, they're both negative. So I'm going to take this one and bring it down. So it's n to the 1st on the bottom. I'm going to take this one and bring it up. So it's n to the 4th on the top. Now these will cancel themselves out. Do 4 minus 1 and get 3. Or cancel this 1 with one of these, meaning there's still 3 left over up top, and there's our answer there. All right, 15. Got a bunch going on here. You can go ahead and bring the 2 in now if you want to. But what I would do is I would go ahead and simplify in here. I see these m's already here together. So I'm going to go ahead, and if you think about order of operations, parentheses comes first before exponents. Okay, so if you have something to do in here, you should do that. So I'm going to keep this in parentheses. It's going to be raised to the second still. The 2 and the n, nothing changes. But I'm going to go ahead and combine these. My product property says add these, so negative 4 plus 3 is going to be negative 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and give everything the power of 2. So 2 to the power of 2 is 4. N to the power of 2 is n squared. And then I'm going to get m to the negative 2 when I multiply. And this needs to go to the bottom. So it's 4n squared over m squared. Okay, last one. Now, this part isn't in parentheses. So before I start trying to combine anything, here it was all in parentheses. So I need to do that first, then raise to the power. This v to the 3rd is outside of parentheses. So I have to go ahead and take care of my exponents here first, because this is just multiplication. So let's go ahead and bring this in. I'm going to leave v to the 3rd alone. Just go ahead and simplify here. So power to a power, I'm multiplying. This is u to the negative 8. Multiply here. A negative and a negative is going to be a positive 12. Now I can start combining. I've got my v's. That's going to be v to the 15th. And in the process, I need this negative 8 to come to the bottom to become a positive 8. So v to the 15th is up top, u to the positive 8 on the bottom.